And I want to divide what I see in this passage here into 3 roads, okay? He went on to describe 3 roads that he traveled on in his search for satisfaction. Okay, he went down 3 roads to discover whether any one of those roads would lead to satisfaction in life. And let me tell you what those 3 roads are, okay? Road number 1 that he traveled on is the road of enlightenment, or education if you like. Okay, the road of education, the road of enlightenment. Solomon began his search for satisfaction in life by traveling down this road of education, this road of enlightenment. He tried to find the meaning of life by gaining or pursuing after knowledge and wisdom. He started with that. He thought that maybe if I know enough, if I have enough education, if I have enough knowledge, if I am more educated, wiser, more learned, I can reach the point of enlightenment. And I will reach a point of satisfaction in life. I will reach a state where I'm satisfied, like nirvana, like that. No? If I keep doing that, maybe I'll reach there. And then I'll find satisfaction in life. And Solomon says, I tried it all. I tried to understand things and I tried to study and all that. What was his conclusion? Look at verse 17 and 18. Why don't we read that, okay? This is his conclusion, walking down the road of enlightenment. He said, then I applied myself to the understanding of wisdom, and also of madness and folly. But I learned that this too is a chasing after the wind. For with much wisdom comes more sorrow. The more knowledge, the more grief. What a conclusion. If you have ever tried catching the wind, if you try catching the wind, everybody do this. Come on. How do you feel? It's an exercise of utility, isn't it? Waste time, And he says, the whole thing is like catching the wind. It's an exercise of utility. And that's why when we try to find the meaning of life in knowledge and education, you will find in the end that it's an exercise of futility. There are many, many learned men, who end up committing suicide also. Because they can't find the answer to life in that. I can almost see Solomon as he described himself. The more I dig, the more grievous I became. The deeper I study, the more disappointed I feel. And it's terrible. I think finally he understood the definition of a specialist. You know how to define a specialist? He's someone who knows more and more of less and less. Isn't it? Who's a specialist? He knows more and more of less and less. Henry Martin was a great scientist in his time. He spent his whole life pursuing knowledge. And when he died, in fact, he put on his tombstone these 3 words. He died learning. He died learning. There's a guy called Huxley who wrote a book called Ends and Means. And he made a very interesting statement in this book. He said this, he said, science can give us improved means to achieve unimproved ends. That's profound, Science can give us improved means to achieve unimproved ends. How do you understand that? D.L. Moody is an evangelist, so he put things in a simpler way. The way he said it is this way. If you take someone who is stealing bolts and nuts from off a railway track, and then you try to change him, so you send him to university. Okay, 3 years later, he's going to come out of university. Now he's armed with a university degree. He's going to come, and now he's going to steal the entire railway. Why? Because when he went into university, he was a sinner. When he came out, he was a smarter sinner. Now he's got even better ways to carry out the unimproved ends that is in his heart. Are you with me? See, what is Solomon trying to say? He's trying to say this: we can educate the mind, but we cannot change the heart. We can conquer the world, but we cannot conquer the human heart. You see, man has now learned how to fly to the moon, harness the power of the atom, but we cannot stop war, we cannot stop murders, we cannot stop rapes. Isn't that right? Why? Very simple. See, only Jesus has the power to transform hearts and life. Only the gospel has the power unto salvation. See, education is not the key. And Solomon realized the futility of trying to find satisfaction in life on this road of enlightenment. So what did he do? He turned off. He turned off this road. He went down into the next road. Okay, now he said, let me test pleasure. Okay, the road of enjoyment. And listen to me, brothers and sisters. Many of us have tried walking down all these roads before, haven't we? And many of our friends are still walking down these same roads, So here he says, well, if learning is not the answer, maybe pleasure is. So let me enjoy life and see what happens. So you read Ecclesiastes 2, you will find this. I thought in my heart, come now, I will test you with pleasure to find out what is good. But that also proved to be meaningless. Laughter, I say, is foolish. What does pleasure accomplish? What did he do? I tried cheering myself with wine, embracing folly, my mind still guiding me with wisdom. I wanted to see what was worthwhile for man to do under heaven during the few days in their lives. I acquired men, women singers, and a harem. You know what a harem is, right? A whole collection of women, as it were. The delights of the heart of man. Well, he really understood the whole thing well. You know, whole harem, and he said, the delight of the heart of man. You know what he's saying? Solomon went for the wine, women, and song, basically. He went for it. And he did it with all his heart, you know. The whole works, wine, women, and song. Everything hamtam. And Solomon went for everything. In other words, that the modern man is going for. You see, what is the modern man going for? Same thing, wine, women, and song. The philosophy of the modern man, you know, I think can be summarized in 6 words. Basically, it's this. If it feels good, do it. Right? What is the existentialist view to life? Basically, it's this. If it feels good, just do it. 6 words only. I read a story once about a girl, you know, from Singapore. Went on a trip to Europe. And then he met a young man there and they had a night of pleasure together. Just the night before she's going to come back to Singapore. And the next day at the airport, you know, he passed her a letter just as she was boarding the plane and said, "This is for you." And she was so excited because she thought it was a love letter, you know. So the moment she settled into her seats, immediately take out the letter, tear the whole thing, kanchong like anything, you know. Take out the letter and only one-liner only. The letter reads like this: "Welcome, baby, to the 8th generation." And she found herself tested, you know, HIV positive. I think she has since left the country because she couldn't handle it. That was way back. This is what you get when we live life with this philosophy. If it feels good, just do it. And I tell you this, Solomon had went through all this. He tested it, see whether he can be satisfied or not. And you know what his conclusion was? It didn't work. Let me tell you some of the things he did. Number 1, he tried embracing foolishness. He first tried embracing foolishness like eat, drink, and be merry, you know. So what did he do? He got himself jesters, you know, that means court jesters, people who make him laugh. He tried laughter. He said, come and get people who can make me laugh, you know, and see whether I can be happy, and then maybe I'll find satisfaction in life. It's the equivalent of today's stand-up comedian and sitcom, you know, that we have so many on our TV programs now, isn't it? So what do? We sit before and watch Friends, and then ha 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 ha, and then laugh, 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 laugh. After that, followed by Fraser or whatever, laugh, 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 laugh. And then the whole thing over, switch on the TV, and then you go to your bed, you lie down. Do you still very satisfied? Not very, right? Same experience down here. Solomon thought that if he laugh and make merry, he can forget all about his problem, you know. So he tried it. Some people believe that if we look on the bright side of things, you know, just make a joke out of everything, life will be all right. But is that true? Not at all. I like this story. There's a guy who went to see a psychologist, you know, because of his depression. And their sessions went on for weeks and weeks and weeks. The doctor tried all sorts of things to try and help this guy, but couldn't help him. Finally, he didn't want to waste his time anymore. So the doctor said to him, he said, you know, I really can't help you. I tried everything I know, but I tell you what, you know, there's a circus that just came to town. And I heard that it was so good because there's this clown over there from Italy or something, you know. And he was so good, he made everybody laugh, roll on the floor and all that. And he said, so why don't you go to the circus and see whether this clown can help you? Maybe your depression will go and you can have a good laugh. And this guy turned to the doctor with sadness in his face. He said, Doctor, I am the clown. I am the clown. This is life, you know. Now, Henry Hancock, he was a great comedian in his time. He had the people laughing away in his stand-up comedy show. But you know, finally, he hung himself, committed suicide. He made thousands of people laugh and all that. Deep inside, he was crying. And Solomon discovered that merry-making is not the answer to life. In the end, there is no true satisfaction. Not at all. Then you know what else he tried? He tried exotic wine. I tell you, I am living in Australia now, you know. Wine is like the thing, you know. I mean, they say that if you live in Australia, don't know how to drink wine, you haven't lived in Australia yet. And they have this thing called connoisseur, you know, someone who tests wine and all that. Solomon must have tasted the best wines in the world, don't you think? He was a true wine connoisseur. After all, he grew his own vineyard, you know. So he can all the wine he wanted. He must have drank to his heart's content. And in the end, he said what? It did not satisfy. Didn't satisfy. I mean, I have counseled enough families, especially when I was in Yishun, we have a lot of Indian families that are there. I have counseled enough families who have their life destroyed because of drunkenness. That's why this poem, every day and every hour, booze gets someone in his power, strips him of his self-respect, leaves his life completely wrecked. And it's very true. I've seen it. Many people can testify to the futility of trying to find satisfaction at the bottom of a bottle. Isn't it right? They try. And after the hangover, you'll be left high and dry. And that's what Solomon experienced. So what did he do next? He tried enjoying women. If embracing foolishness didn't work, exotic wine didn't work, enjoy women. So, wow, man, this guy was all the way. Solomon then went on to taste the pleasure of women. If there is anybody in this world who can testify to whether sex is the thing that can bring lasting satisfaction, Solomon must be the man. Agree? Any one of you have like him or not? In fact, he had a harem, according to 1 Kings 11:3. 700 wives, 300 concubines. I tell you, that's a lot of women. In fact, that's a lot of mother-in-laws also. Don't know why he did that. That's why I was so hit, when I read about C.A. Camus. C.A. Camus is an existentialist. Didn't believe in God and all that, but he wrote a book entitled The Adulterous Woman. The story goes like this, It was about a diamond merchant who took his wife to the city for the first time, from the village, He took his wife to the big city for the first time on a business trip. She was so excited, because she's never been to the big city before. And that night, as she sleeps there next to her husband in the hotel bed, all of her mind was filled with fantasies, about living up in the big city life. It was all there. And finally, while the husband was sleeping and she was lying there, she could not contain herself anymore. So what she did was this: she slipped out into the night, and in the words of C.A. Camus, lived out all of her sexual or youthful fantasies. So she lived it out for one night, and just before dawn, she slips back into the hotel room, slips back into her nightgown, slips back into her bed, and then the reality began to dawn. And she started sobbing. She started weeping, and she cried so hard until she shook the bed, And the husband was awakened. And so the husband turned to her, see her in tears, and asked her, "What's wrong, honey? What's wrong?" And in typical existential style, she replied, "Nothing, just nothing." And the book ends like that. Nothing, just nothing. Listen to me, brothers and sisters. I think the greatest tragedy in life is when you have just experienced what you thought was the ultimate, only to discover that it was nothing. It does not satisfy. And Solomon said, meaningless. All is meaningless. So enlightenment didn't work. Enjoyment didn't work. So he said, maybe I do something more noble.